about Daedelus?
Sure. Long-term music maker from Los Angeles. Daedelus is a moniker that grew up out of the need to express myself in a way that, like, a name is fine, but when you put on another identity, that layer of an identity, you can basically express grander ideas. It allows you to fill a larger vessel because something about a name is powerful. Something in the name is powerful. So that's a little bit of tech I've been working for a while myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I've been involved in the electronic music world for a hot minute, and before that hip hop, and before that who knows what. And
right.
The world is vigorous in this way that allows you to do anything you set your mind to. I feel like the possibilities there.
That's right. That's cool, man. Very cool. You used to be in a group or two, right? Or are you still a part of a group?
I'm still part of a few ensembles. I mean, solo music as an electronic producer is the easiest way to approach. It's like, how else do you sit in that kind of solitary space and create? It's nice to have a core area of voices, but it's so direct and easy when you're just alone, getting your producer tan.
Right, right. No time.
Just kind of doing the thing. But I really like being in an aspect. I come from a background playing jazz and classical music, ensemble work. Bass was my instrument before a lot of other things, and it's that kind of thing where you get used to playing in harmony in a choir, like I said. And there's something very powerful about that, but not so immediate. You're always waiting for some other impulse to get you someplace.
Right.
I like both aspects, but most of the time I'm a solo solitary performer that way.
Cool. So you just kind of touched on a couple of questions that I was going to ask you. What did you prefer? Because I used to be in a group and had a solo thing that I would do. If somebody asked you, if somebody had to put you for a dilemma, which would you rather do as a preference, the group or the solo thing? So you kind of touched on it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, between group and solo play, there's this wonderful wild swings of difference. But for me, one of the things I find to be a through thread in my career is this immediacy. The faster the thought is, the faster you can commit an idea to music. The more immediate it is, and the more vital it feels. The audience understands that. The listener can hear that vitality. And so whatever gets you there quick. And sometimes people like to sublimate where they, like, maybe you get blunted and your ideas come fast because you stop that no voice in your mind. Sometimes that's because you're alone in the room and your own opinions are the things that matter most. So there's a variety of ways of getting yourself there, but that thing that gets you there quickly is important.
Right.
I do think the solo production is vital.
Okay, nice.
I'm not going to say it's the best because, man, like, songs come in the most weird ways, and sometimes the songs that took the longest and were the hardest to create are the ones that end up expressing these huge ideas. Right. But in my career, in my life, with the amount of production I've done, it actually is the stuff that happened fast.
Okay. So you said you play bass. Are you a classically trained bassist?
Yeah. More jazz. I did classical music, upright classical, upright jazz, some electric jazz. I love that world. I love fingers on strings. I love acoustic resonances and stuff, but they don't serve me necessarily all the time altogether.
You know what I'm seeing when you're speaking on that is that it seems like a common thread is the improvisation.
Totally.
Right? When you say you come from jazz, and then the way you just described the whole the instant of the creation. So that's pretty cool. It's like an improv type of thread that works.
The truth of the matter is that it's all improv. No matter how conducted and composed you are and how much you're, when it comes down to it, you are defining what in that moment feels cool to you, what it feels like is expressible.
Right.
If you aren't in touch with that, and it takes you a lot of times, I mean, it's less improvised, quote unquote, but you're going to get there. And so it just depends on your definition of time. I mean, music is a temporal art, and it takes time to express itself. You can't just in one moment play one chord and have it be enough. You have to let things unravel over time. So maybe somebody isn't improvised technically, but it all comes from that same space. It just depends on your definition of time.
Right. Dope. No doubt. So who inspires you? The kind of music that you listen to that when you're chilling and you just want to be inspired, or just in general, who inspired you to come up?
In terms of like non-peers, in terms of people, my heroes, people like John Barry, Michel Legrand, Georges Ben, these kind of people who composed, and yet at the same time what they had to say in their compositions in the variety of ways they found voice. A lot of them, talking about John Barry and Michel Legrand, they were both film composers. They're both known for their film composition. They did other work too, but they're known for their film composition. I just love the fact that they created these moods. That although they didn't necessarily put words to them, they felt it. And when you listen to a Dilla joint or something that, like for instance, another person that's more of a peer or contemporary, although a hero as well, he's a gentleman that like without words, made a moment feel alive. And the same thing with Madlib, who is a distinct hero of mine, an amazing producer, like a gentleman I'm so happy I've gotten in the studio with, and in that kind of way, just like effortlessly creates these spaces. And you are in essence guesting in their space. No matter if you are producing with them or just listening to them, you're in their worldview. I like that. I like it when you are swept up in a concept and you don't even realize it, you're just there.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like it cocoons you almost.
And I think good music does that. Good music transports you.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
Bad music transports you as well, just differently.
That's right.
To a shitty place.
Right. Exactly. That's a great concept, though. So, B-Boy Tech Report, we're about the gear and the process, right? So I'd like to get into that a little bit. Like, what's your studio rig like?
I use Pro Tools, which again is not the most high-tech function, but it's fast. I'm all about speed. I like analog gear a lot of times because it's fingers on buttons and you just move to where you want it to go. I use a lot of plug and play as well in terms of like post work mixing and mastering. I like plugs. I like physical equipment as well, but there's a definition that I like in these kind of being able to really tailor with the plugin what sound you want it to go. But that's a less of a speedy place. That's more when you want to have things be more glacial and you want to hear where the sound is exactly lining up. So I like it for mixing and mastering. But in terms of creation, it's all about as much as you can getting away from the computer, getting away from the laptop, getting things under your fingers and creating. So I'm a big controllerist. I love control systems. I use monoms particularly when I perform. That's my basis in my performance style. But at the same time, any way people get away from the laptop or even the turntable more and more is if you think I really appreciate the fact that people overcome the limitations of a turntable do amazing things. But let's look at it honestly. A turntable is a linear functionality. You go forward, you go backward. It's pretty much all the turntable can do. You see people do amazing other things and they've hacked the system to do more, but the truth matter is it only goes forward back. So then when you take these button systems and knob systems, dude, the possibilities are incredible. Way to expand.
It's true. Yeah, it's next level.
It can be next level. I mean, a lot of people use it just as like a bang, but the truth of the matter is that it can be more, and it can shift in a greater dynamic, especially as you have things modifying and controlling each other.
Right. It's true.
A lot of possibilities.
That brings up a conversation I had with Keith McMillan from KMI Instruments, and we were talking about controllerism and the idea that hip hop, which is from my perspective, that's where I come from, right? That you two and we, with hip hop, it started like the DJ was the man, right? And then he had the MC come in, and then after a while when people started getting signed, the DJ was kind of cut out of the deal. He kind of fade to the back. But now it's going in reverse again. It's going back to that where the dude in the back has become a center stage, and he has all this instrumentation and controllerism and stuff. He's center stage.
Kanye essentially is a producer who now does vocals, and people don't see that shift. It's a subtle thing, but more and more often now, the people who are in the forefront are the people who have a worldview and a sound view. It's encompassing. They're not just a voice on somebody else's music. They themselves are the music, and they are a sound.
That's true.
And I hear what you're saying about DJs being the band, but actually, I think what's a fundamentally amazing thing is that by the distillation of the band into one person, you have somebody who could really choose where it was to go. In a moment, you could literally shift between one track and another. A band can't do that.
This is true.
A band can't stop on a dime and go to immediately a totally different vibe that connects because of the genius of a DJ.
Right.
It's like a band would have a hard time planning that kind of break. I mean,
it's true. I used to have a band, and I know that to be true.
Okay, everybody, let's go.
Right. It is hard. It's tough. And really astute players can really get there, and it can be really fresh. But there's a lot of work behind that.
But not the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of touched on that. When you go from your studio to the live stage, how are you going? Like, are you really in the box? So is that how you're able to bring that to the stage? That way?
I'm a big fan of making the studio as different a space as live as possible. Because if you try to bring the studio on stage, you are dealing with the same personal choices. And honestly, when you're on stage, you are not alone. Your audience is in your hands. The audience is with you in a way that either you can ignore them to your peril, or you can embrace them to your benefit. They are a volatile force of disruption and craziness and drunkenness.
Right.
But that's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
You have the best night of your life, and you want these people to have that same experience.
Yeah,
I mean, why else would you be on stage unless you want to bring that?
That's right. It's that energy you feed on.
Exactly. So I want to be as present as possible. I use equipment that allows me to improvise, and I've done that in the studio as well. I use improvisational gear that I use on stage in the studio, but I find that when I use it in the studio, that it becomes like routine, and I want to keep it not routine. I want to keep it exceptional.
Right.
So I kind of make the spaces separate.
Okay.
But that's
Nice.
That's
Cool.
me. You know, I appreciate any technique people use. I've seen people with Game Boys make incredible music.
I have too.
People with $1 million equipment do amazing stuff. The person who says that one is better than the other is a fool. Whatever gets you there, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And then we're all different anyway, so our different perspectives and our different takes on things are always going to be different.
That's why
like I know that there's incredible iPad synths, and I love to sample and be experimental with them. But I know dudes that don't use anything but that, and I can't really do that. You know what I mean? But I can't criticize that either.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I definitely feel where you're coming from with that. So do you have a favorite piece of gear or that one thing, like when you're out on the road, like now you're like, I can't wait to get back home to my so-and-so?
I take the aspect. My point of view a lot of times in the studio is that each record has its own focus. Be it like drums or a synthesizer or a particular technique. A lot of records come from that space for me. So I'm right now really excited about like certain analog pieces of gear that allow me to make this messy, crazy, spread out sound.
Okay.
And like right now I'm recording a record with an Aleph, which is a piece of gear that's come out, which is mixing analog and digital from the people who make my monoms, which is a control system. They're making a synthesizer now. So I'm focusing a lot of my energy through this new box that they made.
And what's it called again?
Aleph. A-L-E-P-H.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm saying it totally right. They always have crazy pronunciations.
Right.
I'm saying how I say it, but it's an amazing, like really experimental, very, very deep piece of gear. So I'm just, as I'm fidgeting with it, I'm making tracks that then become a record, and that's usually how it works for me. I usually let a technique lead the way.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, you know what? That reminds me of RZA saying that. That's sort of like what RZA says. Every time he would do a score for a movie or a new project, he would get a new instrument. Like he would get an MC909 or something or another thing.
It's very important because if you just let your typical techniques, you're going to come up with the same sound. It's worth going for it.
Right. Okay, no doubt. For people, there's so much access to be able to make music. There's tons of stuff out here now. So when I came up like in the 90s, the dude in the neighborhood that had an MPC was the hero in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? So everybody's at his crib. So now everybody has access to all this stuff, but I'm not sure if everybody has the foundation or even sometimes the passion for it, and there's a struggle through the life of a career of a musician. What advice would you give to aspiring beat maker and a musician out there?
Sure. I mean, always definable voices will be heard louder than an undefined voice. Having a definition and a point of view is going to allow you to get places, unforeseen places, and that's where you want to be. You know exactly where you're going. It's boring. It's routine. You want to be in exceptional places. One of the things about that, though, that's important to know is that to get to that place, you have to know where people have been, where history has been. That's why you see so many DJs who become successful producers, is because they have these perspectives. They know exactly where things have gone and been, and they know where they're going. So there's a back and forth. I think it's empowering to have more people with more tools that allow them to do these things. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get to their voice fast, but if you can figure out your route, and I have my own particular techniques that I tell young producers to get there, to kind of maybe some techniques to life hacks or whatever to kind of go to that spot, but really just if people can focus on what makes them them, and people are all snowflakes. There is no way you're going to be exactly like somebody else. To try to be like somebody else is a fool's errand. So there's a little bit of a push and pull on that.
And I always say that being original has its rewards way beyond imitating somebody, because Kanye is the first Kanye because that's incredible on its own. He didn't try to be the next Jay-Z. You know what I mean?
So there's plenty of people in New York that are trying to be the next Jay-Z.
That's right. That's right.
I don't know their names.
Yeah, right. That's it. That's true. That's true. No doubt. And the last thing, what kind of projects are you working on right now?
Yeah, I got like 5 records.
Wow.
5 records. One for Brain Theater that's coming up.
Okay.
Looks like it's going to be, working title is The Light Brigade.
Okay.
It's based on a historical conflict that is very evocative for me, so that record's coming up. I have a record called Labyrinths that is based on a different moment in more recent history.
Okay.
But powerful, evocative. And then 2 records with this jazz ensemble called Body. So I'm taking my sound and allowing it to breathe with more instrumentation.
Okay.
One of them's with the full ensemble, one of them's with the saxophonist named Ben Wendell, and that's a very different nature project. So those 2, and then one more record of this group Adventure Time, which I've had ongoing for years now. It's wonderful. There's a cartoon called Adventure Time as well. Okay. A little bit tough. We have a project called Adventure Time. It's all good. It's all just good, but just one of those things.
Nice. So you keep them busy.
Dude, if you're not doing everything you possibly can, you aren't doing anything.
That's right.
You have to grind, dude.
I love that. It's a t-shirt. No doubt. It's a motto to live by. I appreciate it, man.
Really
no doubt.
It.
It's good meeting you. All right. Thank you.
Good luck on everything.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.